Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Maple Conservative Girl podcast. My name is Danica, and today I am talking about the growing cracks inside the Liberal government. From Stephen Guilbeault resigning, to Mark Carney's Alberta problem, to Liberal infighting over pipelines and national unity. I'm also breaking down Pierre Poilievre taking a direct stance, a clear stance, on trans issues involving children, the growing distrust in government institutions, because right now it feels like the political establishment is trying to hold together a coalition that no longer agrees on basically everything. So grab your coffee, hit subscribe, and let's get right into it.
There will be a high-profile resignation announcement on Parliament Hill tomorrow, as Liberal MP and former Cabinet Minister Stephen Guilbeault has made a decision on his future in the government caucus and federal politics altogether. Now, Guilbeault, you'll remember, previously left Cabinet over concerns about the party's direction on environmental policy. He is expected to break the news to his colleagues at the National Liberal Caucus meeting that he'll be leaving politics altogether.
So I'm not going to comment on whether he is or is not resigning, because I only know what I've read in the news. But I will say this, Stephen Guilbeault is a good colleague. He has been for 7 years now, since 2019, and I value his input, and I always have.
There's no reason to doubt this, though, given the trajectory of things. He's continuously made his discomfort known, not in a disrespectful or an aggressive way, but as, sort of as a guy who spent his life working on this. I mean, you have no reason to doubt that this is what is going to happen in the next 24 hours, do you?
Well, I don't, as I said, I'm not going to comment. I can comment on what has happened. I mean, he stepped down, he resigned his cabinet position. He felt that he could make his views better heard outside of the cabinet room, and he's been very clear on what his views are, and I respect those views. And the great thing about our caucus, Dave, and I've said this to you before, is we have a big tent.
Stephen Guilbeault is resigning from federal politics. How this guy ever got into politics in the first place and so far up in politics is beyond me. There are too many activists in this government. But what I do gotta give him is at least he stands by his principles, But this is way bigger than just one politician stepping away, because Guilbeault represented an entire era of Liberal politics. An era defined by anti-oil politics, climate absolutism, activist-style governing. I mean, like I said, there's too many activists in the government, and constant hostility towards Alberta's energy sector, therefore constant hostility towards Alberta's people. That's what he was symbolizing politically. And this is a guy who built his political brand around environmental activism. And for years, conservatives have looked at Guilbeault as basically the human embodiment of Ottawa's anti-energy mindset. He is a radical nutcase. The regulations, the pipeline hostility, the moral lectures, the Canada should phase out fossil fuels rhetoric, and we're the worst, We're 1%, that 1% is just too much, right? That was Guilbeault. So the timing here matters a lot, because suddenly Mark Carney is trying to pivot. He's trying to make it look like he wants a pipeline. Now, all of a sudden, Liberals are talking about energy cooperation, national unity. Oh, we want to work with Alberta. We want economic growth, even though you've completely destroyed this economy. Our economy is in the toilet, partly because of you guys. Mostly because of you guys. Pipeline discussions, they want to talk about all these things now. And conservatives, we're sitting there like, oh, now you guys support energy. Now you guys want to act conservative. Because for nearly a decade, Alberta was treated like the problem child of Confederation. Oil and gas workers were constantly demonized. Pipelines became political poison, and every project turned into a regulatory nightmare. And investors, what did they do? Who wants to invest in Canada? They fled Canada quick, because nobody wants to build a project here in Canada if they might not even get approved. And now suddenly the Liberal government wants Canadians to believe that they're pro-pipeline? Please. I'll believe it when I see it. If Liberals actually wanted pipelines built, they would repeal the laws blocking pipelines getting built. It's simple. And that's why I keep saying that the Liberals don't actually want this pipeline MOU to turn into an actual thing. It's never going to happen. They want to keep the laws in place, but they say that they're going to go around the laws because pipelines are a matter of national interest. This eradicates their whole point. And now they're trying to blame Danielle Smith while nobody in the mainstream media talks about like the bad laws. People are not investing in Canada not because of Danielle Smith, but because of the Liberal policies. And the CEOs of these big companies have come out and said it directly. But if Danielle Smith can't find an investor, Mark Carney can hide behind her and say, you see, it just can't get done. I want a pipeline, but Danielle Smith is to blame. Or, if NDP leader David Eby decides, he wants to veto the project, which he does, obviously. He said that he wants to. The Natives has said, nope, no pipeline. So then Mark Carney can say, oh, well, it's not me. I want a pipeline, but, these people don't want one. David Eby doesn't want one, but I want one. So he's trying to hide behind these people and blame other people for him not getting a pipeline deal done. You cannot claim to support energy infrastructure while keeping the exact same regulatory system designed to stop energy infrastructure in place. That makes zero sense. And the biggest example of that is Bill C-69. Conservatives have been attacking this legislation for years because they argue that it creates endless gatekeeping and uncertainty around major projects. And whether Liberals like hearing this or not, investors, they've noticed. Companies have noticed. Capital has fled this country. Canada developed a global reputation for slow approvals, regulatory chaos, political uncertainty, and activist interference. They are so loud. That's not conservative propaganda either. That's reality. And honestly, this is where the Liberal narrative completely falls apart, because now they're trying to run two completely contradictory messages at the same time. He's trying to please everybody here. He's trying to pretend, his message number one is, we support pipelines and Alberta energy, and we want a pipeline built, a potential pipeline built. But then at the same time, they have a second message where they're saying, we're keeping the exact same anti-energy framework that blocked pipelines in the first place. You cannot have both. That's like somebody setting your house on fire for 10 years and then showing up with a measly little garden hose asking for you to applaud them for helping you. So if you suddenly support pipelines now, like you say that you do, why are all the anti-pipeline laws still there? And the Guilbeault resignation makes this contradiction even more obvious, because conservatives, we see this as a sign of tension inside the Liberal Party itself. You won't hear them questioning Mark Carney's leadership on the news, though. Reverse those roles with Poilievre and you'd have wall-to-wall coverage. Now, 14 MPs sign a letter. One former cabinet minister resigns over Mark Carney's decisions, and they're basically saying that they're not happy, and not a peep. Why aren't they talking about Mark Carney's leadership here? This isn't just conservatives versus liberals anymore. Now it's liberals versus liberals, because the activist wing of the party absolutely despises this Alberta pivot. They hate the pipeline language. They hate the cooperation with Danielle Smith, even though this whole pipeline deal, guys, it is not a deal. It is a fake deal that will never happen. It will never happen under these liberals. Mark my words, a pipeline will not get built in this country to the East Coast, to the West Coast. It's not going to happen under this Liberal government. And Guilbeault represented that activist wing better than almost anybody else. And it's funny that he's actually stepped down over something that's never going to happen. But his resignation feels symbolic. It feels like the beginning of a deeper fracture.
Did they try to get you to stay?
There were some conversations.
Did the Prime Minister? I should be more specific.
There was some conversation with his office where they said they were interested in keeping me on board, but at the same time, I don't think they were particularly pleased with the fact that I was being publicly vocal in my disagreement with the government on some of those issues. So I think it's I respect the Prime Minister. I respect the team and cabinet and my colleagues. It's just time for me. I came into and people come into politics for different reasons. That's why I came into politics. And if I can't work on that and help move those issues inside politics, then I'm just going to go and do it somewhere else.
Do you think the possibility exists for others to follow suit? What does your gut tell you?
I think it's a good question. I mean, as you know, in our parliamentary system, it's very rare to see a cabinet minister leave cabinet of their own. Usually you're asked to leave, or there's an election, there's a cabinet shuffle. I can tell you that I'm not the only one who's uncomfortable with what's happening. Other than that, I'm not sure what people will do.
Basically hinting that he may not be the only unhappy Liberal in the caucus. If more MPs start turning publicly on Carney over pipelines and Alberta cooperation, then suddenly this becomes a full internal Liberal civil war, and Stephen Guilbeault leaving kind of opens the door to allow other people to do this, because to be outspoken, more outspoken, to share their disapproval because, you know, a former cabinet minister is resigning over this. So maybe people will start coming out of the shadows. Maybe not. Who knows? But Conservatives are loving every second of this. Reality is forcing choices. And suddenly the contradictions are exploding publicly. It's all over the place. Now, personally, I think that Conservatives are smart enough to see right through this entire pipeline pivot. We know that Mark Carney is not serious about building pipelines, because if he was, he would start dismantling the regulatory machine, blocking them in the first place. That's the issue. Not speeches, not PR, not carefully worded CBC interviews. Policy. Actual policy. And nothing is getting done.
And doesn't this show that Mark Carney is moving away from those Trudeau-era policies, given that Stephen Guilbeault, well, they canceled the carbon tax.
And then they brought a new one in.
They signed this MOU with Alberta.
Which hasn't implemented anything.
They're supposed to by July 1st. I'm just saying, though, there are these examples that were so egregious to Mr. Guilbeault that he felt the need to step down. So what do you make of that?
Well, I would say that Mr. Guilbeault should cheer up, because, frankly, all of the radical anti-development net zero policies that he and Mr. Carney both supported over the last 10 years that are found in Mr. Carney's book are still actually implemented. Every single anti-development law remains on the books. The industrial carbon tax is not only on the books, it's going up 6 times, according to the Prime Minister. The consumer carbon tax has been renamed and reintroduced. It will be bigger and broader than the previous Trudeau carbon tax. And there is no pipeline that is actually pathed, for which there is there's no investor, there's no start date, there's no proponent. So, frankly, Mr. Guilbeault's radical anti-development agenda, which Mr. Carney enthusiastically advocated in his own book, all of that remains in place. The illusions of grand announcements and smiley face signing ceremonies notwithstanding, everything remains the same, and Mr. Guilbeault's agenda is firmly crystallized under this Liberal government.
Exactly. Why is Stephen Guilbeault even mad? They haven't even done anything. He's mad about an MOU, an agreement that will never go anywhere. Do you think that anything will happen by July 1st? Do you trust these Liberals? And then the Liberal voters tell us Conservatives, what are you complaining about? Mark Carney is more centre than any other Liberal Prime Minister ever has been. He's implementing Conservative policies. Actually, he's not. He's just pretending to be the pipeline guy and the Conservative guy axing the carbon tax without ever getting a pipeline built, without actually axing the carbon tax. Grand announcements with nothing to show for it. Repeal the gatekeeping laws, speed up approvals, create investor certainty, stop treating Canadian energy like some embarrassing moral failure. when we're sitting on massive wealth that could literally pull us out of the shithole that we are in. That's what Alberta wants, and that's what conservatives want. And honestly, this is why so many conservatives are frustrated when liberals suddenly start pretending to care about national unity, because where was this concern 5 years ago? Where was this concern when projects were being cancelled, jobs were being lost? Where was this concern when Alberta workers were being told their industry was the problem? Now suddenly everybody in Ottawa is shocked that people are angry? Really? You cannot spend a decade strangling energy projects in one province and then suddenly pretend that you're pro-pipeline because Alberta got politically inconvenient. It's all a big lie. Now, Mark Carney got caught on a hot mic moment, not realizing that he was being filmed about this whole pipeline situation, about Danielle Smith, and honestly, this clip will tell you everything that you need to know about how the Ottawa political class thinks. This is Mark Carney, okay? You're getting the real answer instead of the polished media-trained version, because he obviously didn't know that he was being filmed.
Back up. What are you doing? This is stupid. I think that the headlines of what he's doing is enough. So I understand it. I will raise it.
I gave Danielle Smith an off-ramp. Now, conservatives immediately reacted to this because listen to the mindset behind that statement. He's not saying, how do we rebuild trust with Alberta? He's not saying, how do we repair years of alienation? He's not saying, how do we create long-term economic confidence with the province? No. The mindset is, how do we get Danielle Smith to calm this down politically? Why won't she take the darn off-ramp that I gave her? I gave her an off-ramp, damn it, and she's decided to stand with her constituents, the people who voted her in, the people that she's supposed to be working for, over me? And honestly, that is why so many Canadians across this country feel completely disconnected from Ottawa. Conservatives feel disconnected from Ottawa. Albertans as well. They live in their tiny bubble, like totally off subject, but listen to this, okay? Tell me they don't live in their own little bubble.
$195,000 for in-flight catering by the Prime Minister for 3 trips. Scottish salmon fillet, sautéed beef with world-famous creamy sauce, and for dessert, luxury Normandy buttercups. Every dollar this Prime Minister spent on his elite palate was first taken from a hard-working Canadian. This Prime Minister means more costs, more taxes, more debt, and more on the national credit card. Will he cut out his fine dining and rein in his inflationary spending so Canadians can afford to eat?
There you go.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, when the Prime Minister travels, you know what happens? He brings back jobs, he brings back investment, he brings back opportunity for Indigenous people to participate with equity in projects, he brings back technology, he brings back expertise, he brings back military and industrial benefits to Canada. The Prime Minister travels, oh yes he does, and you know what he does? He brings back jobs and investment and energy to Canada.
He's bringing energy, everybody. I thought we were supposed to be an energy superpower, but according to Steve McKinnon here, Mark Carney is going around the world bringing jobs, but we've lost like 150,000 jobs in the last 4 months. And he's bringing investment. What investment is he bringing? Deals? What deals? And energy. Everybody, he's bringing energy, but yet we're supposed to be an energy superpower, so why would we be importing energy? Just doesn't make sense. But Mark Carney is going around the world bringing jobs and investment in deals. Okay, he's not, but let's just say that he was. Does that mean that Steve McKinnon is saying that basically that justifies his $195,000 of spending on food in airplanes? What the hell are they eating? Anyways, all that to say that they don't understand what it's like to live like a real Canadian like you and I. They see Albertans as something to manage, not a real political and economic grievance that has been building for years, because Alberta spent years saying, we feel ignored. And Ottawa responded with carbon taxes, pipeline cancellations, regulatory expansion, and lectures about transitioning away from oil and gas. Now suddenly there's an off-ramp. Danielle Smith is so frustrating to Mark Carney because she wants this pipeline, and she's made it clear that she's a federalist and wants to stay in Canada, but she will also listen to her constituents. She works for Albertans, not the Canadian government, but Mark Carney wants her to take that off-ramp and just shut up about this whole thing. She's a stick in his wheel. And that's why you see all over the news blaming Danielle Smith for causing the separatist movement, for investors not wanting to invest in Alberta energy. Please, it's all the Liberals. It's all their fault. Alberta was basically told, stop complaining, the future is green, you need to transition, oil and gas are yesterday's economy, yet the entire world still runs on oil and gas. But now, national unity suddenly matters to them? No, it doesn't. Ottawa only negotiates when politically forced, not when Alberta politely raises concerns, as they have for many years now, not when premiers ask respectfully, not when industry groups warn about investment leaving. No. Things only change once political pressure becomes dangerous, once separatist sentiment rises, once national unity headlines appear. And, they only care about this Alberta separatist movement. They wouldn't care if it was a Quebec separatist movement. They don't care about the Quebec separatist movements. They only care about the Alberta separatist movements because Alberta pays the bills in this country. We have a separatist movement in Alberta growing and growing and growing, and now suddenly Ottawa discovers compromise. Please. They only care because they pay the bills. And honestly, I think that this hot mic moment hits such a nerve with Canadians online because it sounds managerial, it sounds elite, very detached, very, how do we contain this situation instead of how do we fix the relationship? How do we fix the situation? Now, whether people agree with Danielle Smith or not, there's something really important happening here. She speaks about Alberta frustration because it's real. Carney speaks about it like it's a political management problem, and voters, we notice the difference. People can tolerate disagreement. What they cannot tolerate is feeling dismissed, and basically, Ottawa has dismissed conservatives. They've dismissed the oil industry, the gas industry. They have dismissed pipelines. They have dismissed our greatest wealth in this country. And they've basically told Albertans to sit down and shut up and listen to them. It's not about just pipelines. It's not just about legislation. It's about respect. I mean, they're paying Quebec, I think it's like $60 billion a year. And that's why this debate keeps escalating politically. It's becoming almost impossible for Carney to hold these two separate movements together. Because every move towards Alberta angers climate activists, and every move towards climate activists angers Alberta. And now these contradictions are becoming public, which brings us back to the larger conservative criticism of all this. Conservatives believe that if Liberals actually wanted to rebuild trust with Alberta and with Conservatives, they would stop treating energy development like a moral problem. We don't care about symbolic language or carefully crafted talking points. We care about actual policy changes. So if you really care about our energy, if you really want to be an energy superpower, let's see you walk the talk. Let's see you practice what you preach. Repeal anti-energy legislation, approve projects faster, create investment certainty, and stop punishing the industry that funds huge parts of the Canadian economy. That's what conservatives mean when they say that the pipeline promise does not feel real. We know that it ain't ever going to happen because the underlying anti-energy framework is still there. And we're not stupid, we can see it. And honestly, this next clip that I'm about to show you shows the balancing act Carney is now trapped in politically. Watch how carefully he tries to talk about Alberta, energy, and climate policy all at the same time.
On Monday. Prime Minister, I'm hoping you can clarify some remarks that you made after the scrum on Monday. When you were leaving the press conference, you spoke with Minister Robertson, and I want to read what you set out. What are you doing? This is stupid. You've got an off-ramp. Take it. That to me sounds like you're talking about Danielle Smith and the Alberta referendum question.
I was talking to Minister Robertson.
But can you clarify what you were discussing in that point in time? Because the scrum was about what the Smith had done.
No, it was about Minister Robertson. Look, I have, I think if I'm going to take your question about the relationship with Canada and Alberta, Canada and the federal government and the provinces, and we practice cooperative federalism. We work together. What we're focused on is making the federation work. We're doing that with Alberta with respect to a variety of aspects of energy. It's much more than a pipeline. It's nuclear. It's interconnects with British Columbia. It's a new industry of carbon capture. It's restarting the renewable market. It's getting a carbon market that actually works, that other provinces can be able to join, so we can broaden out a national carbon market. That's what we're doing there.
He wants a carbon market. Like, why not just get out of the damn way? Like, he's trying to satisfy Alberta energy interests, urban progressives, climate activists, national unity voters, and environmental NGOs, all at the same time. Good luck, man. Because eventually somebody realizes that they're not getting what they were promised, and right now, we all feel that nobody's getting what they were promised. Nobody's getting what they want. Because he's trying to please everybody. He's trying to have his cake and eat it too. But will they discuss his poor leadership? I mean, 14 Liberal MPs sent a message to Carney. We don't know who these people are. They refused to release the names because of privacy issues. Well, mark my words. If this was flipped and it was 14 Conservatives writing to Pierre Poilievre about his leadership and his decisions, there would be wall-to-wall coverage across the board for weeks on end. And we've seen that before. But Conservatives, that's not going to happen because Conservatives are united on energy. We all basically agree what needs to get done in energy. And Steven Guilbeault, the 14 activist losers, who, by the way, Carney could lose his majority government because of, you've got Guilbeault, you've got Nate Erskine-Smith, and that other guy, Wilkinson. Not all of those seats are 100% safe, so who knows? Maybe a non-confidence vote in the fall? I'm really hoping. You try to steal a majority and the universe hits you back with a load of karma. Alright, so now let's move into another issue where Pierre Poilievre is very intentionally drawing a line between Conservatives and Liberals, which he should have done a long time ago, because Poilievre is starting to speak much more directly about trans issues involving children, puberty blockers, parental rights, and medical interventions for minors. And what's politically important here is not just what he's saying, it's how directly he's saying it, which, hallelujah. Because Conservatives, we all know what Conservatives think. We all knew already what Pierre Poilievre thinks about this issue, but I feel like you should have taken this stance 18 months ago and not be scared to do it. But everybody's walking on eggshells trying not to trigger the activist backlash. But Poilievre now is finally done with that. He's increasingly taking the opposite approach. Now, obviously, this is a very sensitive topic, so I want to be clear about something here, because people think that because I'm conservative, we're coming from a place of cruelty here. We're not. We're approaching it from concern about our children, concern about medical ethics, concern about irreversible decisions made by children, and concern about parents losing their voice. That's what we're worried about. I just imagine my daughter going to get puberty blockers. My stepdaughter is 12 years old. Imagine she starts feeling bad in her body, as we all do at that age. Nobody feels good in their body. And then some nutcase tells her, oh, well, you might be a boy. Or she sees online that, trans is a thing. So, maybe I'm a boy. And because she's 12 and her brain isn't fully developed, she believes it and starts the process without parental consent because she doesn't need it. Here in Quebec, the age to get medication without parental consent is 14 years old. And honestly, a huge reason this issue has exploded politically is because people feel like we're not even allowed to even ask questions without immediately being labeled as like hateful. Like we're being hateful for noticing that this could be a problem.
Good evening, my name is Billboard Chris. But we have a couple federal bills, namely C-16 and C-4, which do not help. We have a lot of federal funding from the government which goes to organizations which push this idea in our schools that there is such a thing as a child being born in the wrong body. And children are being chemically castrated, they're being maimed, they're cutting off the breasts of girls as young as 14 years old across Canada because of this idea, this abusive idea that they were born wrong.
Sir, you're going to have to get to your question. Very important, but get to your question.
I'm getting to it. This is important. This is the biggest child abuse scandal in the country. So my question is, what does the federal government plan to do about this? Because it's not just a provincial issue. The Conservative Party should be leading on this. It's a winning issue. And I would like to know, as leader of Canada, what you plan to do to stop this child abuse.
The policy of the Conservative Party, as adopted by our national convention in Quebec City 3 years ago, is that there should be no irreversible sex changes for kids, period. That is our policy. And I support that policy. I support that policy. I don't think when you're not old enough to get a tattoo, to go into a liquor store, to have a drink, to join the military, to vote, that you are equipped to make the decision to irreversibly change your body. And I think it's wrong, it shouldn't be happening, and it shouldn't be allowed, period. We also think that biological men have no place in female bathrooms, change rooms, sport, period. And our policy as a Conservative government would reflect all of the things I just said. Thank you.
Isn't it insane that this is even an issue? Like, he speaks directly, no activist jargon, no vague language, no carefully engineered CBC-approved wording, just direct answers. And Conservatives love Pierre Poilievre when he is like this. The Liberals hate him when he's like this, but the Conservatives love him when he's like this. The Liberal politicians, they always speak in this weird bureaucratic dialect where nobody actually says what they mean, like nobody knows what they're talking about. Everything becomes nuance, inclusion, gender-affirming systems, stakeholder conversations. Meanwhile, us ordinary parents are sitting there like, okay, but are children being pushed towards irreversible medical decisions too quickly? You're hateful. You're hateful. Don't even think like that. Don't even ask those questions, right? We can't even ask those questions without being labeled as a bad person. Now, liberals and progressive activists will obviously argue that restrictions on puberty blockers harm youth. That's their argument. But conservatives increasingly counter with children are vulnerable. Like, we should have full control over what's happening with our children until they're 18 years old. Medical caution matters. Like, we should be very careful about giving them irreversible drugs, and irreversible decisions should not be rushed and done so without parental consent. And politically, I mean, this message is just common sense, right? It's like, it resonates with a lot of parents. Every parent I speak to about this is like, duh, like, it doesn't even make sense to support a child making a decision like this, especially parents who feel like institutions become ideological instead of trustworthy. Why are we trusting, doctors to make decisions, or the government to make decisions for our children over us, like the parents? And we feel increasingly like schools and governments and medical institutions and activist organizations, which are so friggin' loud, are making enormous social changes without honest public debate. They shame us instead of debating us. Like, they do so with every conservative concern that we have. And Poilievre is tapping directly into that frustration. Now, whether that strategy expands his support nationally, we'll see. But one thing is absolutely clear here. He is intentionally drawing a sharp cultural contrast with the Liberals. And unlike many politicians, he's doing so without sounding afraid. And at the end of the day, I think what we're watching right now in Canada is much bigger than just one issue. It's bigger than pipelines, it's bigger than Alberta. It's bigger than one committee meeting. It's bigger than one hot mic clip. What we're really watching is the slow breakdown of the old Liberal political coalition, because for years, the Liberal establishment managed to hold together all these different types of people. They say they have a big tent, everybody's welcome. But I mean, when you welcome everybody into the tent, people are gonna get mad. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Like, just come into our giant political umbrella. But now the contradictions are becoming impossible for them to hide. The economy has weakened, housing has become unaffordable, public trust is collapsing, Alberta has pushed back and is continuing to push back, and they're not backing down. And suddenly, all these tensions that were buried under political messaging are exploding into the open now. They broke it, and they want us to trust them to fix it. Come on, we need a new government. Canadians were told for years to trust the experts, trust the institutions, trust the process, everybody. In 2050, everything will look good. But now people are looking around asking, why does everything feel worse? Why does housing still feel impossible, and even more so than it did last year? Why does the economy feel more stagnant than it did last year? Why does government feel more controlling but less competent? Why does every institution seem obsessed with managing language instead of solving problems? All this after more than a decade of these incompetent people who care only about more power, being in power. People feel like the political class has stopped listening to them. They don't care about us. They care about power and money and control. And you see it. And whether people love Pierre Poilievre or despise him, Conservatives finally feel like somebody is actually willing to challenge the system instead of just managing decline. And that's why Pierre Poilievre's message resonates. Not because every voter agrees with every policy that he has, but because he actually does have a plan, and people are desperate for somebody who sounds willing to confront the institutional bubble directly. Who cares about Liberal drama when people are lined up at the food banks? What is the government doing about that? Nothing. And honestly, Ottawa can feel the political move shifting, and that's why you see it in the panic around Alberta. You can see it in the Liberal infighting. You can see it in the media narratives and how they're pushing for blaming everybody else except the Liberal government. You can see it in the growing tension inside the Liberal caucus itself. The old political consensus is cracking. And whether the establishment likes it or not, Canadians are becoming much less willing to simply just accept carefully managed messaging, elite consensus, and just trust us. Just trust them, right? We're just supposed to trust them. But they deliver zero results. We want affordability, we want growth, we want energy development, we want transparency, we want accountability, and leaders who sound like actual human beings that we can relate to. That's why the political mood in Canada is shifting, and Ottawa can feel it because these elite people, Mark Carney is a self-proclaimed elite globalist. He has said that he is a globalist elite himself. He has said that. And he actually is. They don't understand what it's like to live as a true Canadian in society like you and I. They just don't get it. They're not on the same wavelength as us. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think the Liberal coalition is starting to crack? Do you think that Mark Carney can actually balance Alberta and climate activists? And do you think that Canadians are losing trust in institutions? So hit subscribe if you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you have a great day, and I will see you all again next time. Bye!